So we'll start off with the spotting for this skill, which is the rolls forward. The spotter is behind the chair, and the request usually made from in front is I would like you to sort of wheel down as close as you can get to the wall without touching it, and just stop there, if you would, staying within the lines shown here. Okay, just wait till I get into position and spotter on and go. Okay, great. Spotter off. So let's go back to the start there, Tony. Now that would have been in the wheelchair skills test scoring, that would have been a 3, which is an advanced technique. There's nothing I can see that would suggest to change Tony's technique in any way for the scoring. As far as the setup goes, as you see here, we've got lines on the floor, but I've also put a few other things we sometimes use, just as simple as beer mug, disposable, movable slats can be quite useful. The pylons, anything will do. It doesn't have to be a physical line on the floor. Very good. So now maybe just go back here for a moment and we'll talk a little bit about some training issues. It may be useful to segment the skill if a person isn't used to it into the segments being starting, rolling forward, and stopping. For starting purposes, what you don't want the person to do is just to give a good hard push without leaning forward, because if they do, they're going to tip over backwards. So as they begin the skill, they should lean forward a little bit to offset that. That's about the only thing related to the starting. For the rolling forward, you've probably noticed that Tony took nice long strokes and paused between the strokes to allow himself to coast. He took about 5 cycles to get the 10 meters, and that information can be recorded in the comments section of the wheelchair skills test. In terms of the rolling forward portion, each cycle is broken down into 2 phases, the propulsion phase and the recovery phase. The propulsion phase, you'll probably notice that Tony started with his hands behind top dead center. This is my left side. I'll turn around and show you my right side, because the right side can be compared to the hands of a clock that has hour and minute hands on it. And so ideally, the person is going to start with the hands back around 11 o'clock. If this is 12 o'clock, this is 11 o'clock. Starting their hands about 11 o'clock, and when pushing forward, we'll go forward until about 2 o'clock. So there's a total of about 90 degrees of contact angle. That's the propulsive phase as a person moves forward. And then as the hands come back, there are some different techniques that are used. Tony used a semicircular technique from where I was standing, which means that when he let go, his hands came slightly away from the wheels, so that, because if they didn't, they would just bump into the wheels coming back, slightly away from the wheels, and then he recovered them down below the level of the hand rims. And that's the generally recommended technique. And then you catch the hand rims on the rise, and forward you go again. Now, there are some alternatives, and one of them is the so-called arc recovery pattern. So you finish off here, and then you bring your hands back along the path of the hand rims. Some people who have poor sensation in their hands may like that, or for maneuvering in tight spaces where you're changing direction and things. The arc pattern may be fine. And there's some research that shows that is just as energetically effective as doing the semicircular approach. The couple of other ones you'll see in the literature include the over-the-top recovery. So you do the propulsion and bring your hands back over the top, or the DLOP, double loop over the top, which is you release and you sort of come up and then down again. So you got 2 loops. You got the up loop and the down loop, but these are subtleties. It's really the 2 you'll see most often, the semicircular or the arc pattern. The main thing is the long propulsive part. The third phase of the starting, rolling forward, and stopping is just to provide friction to the hand rims with your hands in about the 1 o'clock position, with the right side, your hands about here as you're applying friction to slow yourself down, and also to steer as you're moving forward. So Tony, if you could just give yourself a single push and see how far down you can get. So you can see Tony's chair is pretty well set up. It's not drifting too much to the side, and the floor isn't too uneven, although you see all these marks on the floor that from flooding that we get here regularly. So on the way back, Tony, maybe I'll get you to see if you can take a single push and manage to straddle this bubble wrap without touching it. Okay. So if he was deviating to one side or the other, he would use friction on one hand rim or the other to be able to correct his direction. But when propelling, you may either push harder on the side that you're propelling, you're deviating towards, or use friction on the other side to steer a bit better.